There will be no great Terminator-style revolt of the machines. There will be no future where enormous AI-driven tanks crush human skulls beneath their treads. Instead, AI, if it will indeed eradicate us, as there's a very good chance it might at this rate, will love us to death. It will smother us with pillows and blankets so warm and so soft we will never even think of trying to escape. That somewhat doomsday-ish intro is brought to you by this article, How People Are Really Using Generative AI in 2025, which is bringing up some very interesting points. First and foremost, that the primary use of AI right now is therapy/companionship. Now, I'll get into a little bit more what exactly that means, but if you look down here at another listing, we will see that the top 3 uses of AI right now are social purposes: therapy, companionship, organizing my life, and finding purpose. This is rather disturbing for a fair few reasons that we will be exploring throughout today's video, but first, allow me to set the stage here, because there is something else we need to touch upon before we can really understand what exactly this means. Why people using generative AI, first and foremost to find companionship, is going to be a dangerous proposition for humanity. So, we need to start with the Industrial Revolution 2.0. No, not the one with steam engines, the one with robots. The one we are in right now. As probably pretty much all of you already know, we have seen a great deal more of industrialization and automation over the course of the last 200 years. Beginning, of course, with just proper industrial factories in the first industrial revolution, and now with the automation and more work being handed over to robots or machines. This is going to escalate very drastically over the course of the next 10-20 years, especially now that America is set to enter into a trade war with China. And the only way that the United States can ever hope to compete with the now buffed up China after years of enjoying massive trade surpluses with the US is to outproduce them with automation, as every single American in essence needs to do 3 times the job of every Chinese. More, in fact, as not only are there more Chinese, they work for a lot cheaper as well. And this is true across the West. We are going to need to produce a lot more, particularly also with an aging population, as we will have a smaller and smaller workforce that will be asked to produce more and more to try and make up both for our competition with other nations and because there simply won't be as many people doing the jobs. We're also going to be seeing self-driving cars sooner rather than later. Tesla, for example, already has a great deal of experiments and experience with this very topic. And we are now on the cusp of seeing safe self-driving trucks as well. Once that becomes common, a huge amount of work in the massive logistical system that runs large nations via trucks, via trains, etc. will simply cease to be a human source of employment, as eventually the self-driving truck will drive on up to the store where robots will move over to the truck, unload its cargo, and place it in the store shelves for humans to buy. If the humans will even be visiting the stores at that point, instead of simply having the food delivered to them via drones or delivery services. The point I am moving towards with this little side tangent is that in the future, most jobs will be automated, which in turn means that there will be fewer jobs for people to actually have. Instead of having a factory line with 15 people, you will have one person overseeing 15 robots. In essence, he is going to be troubleshooting, working out the various bugs and glitches that will inevitably appear during any sort of a large-scale production line like this. A McDonald's restaurant, for example, will have one person that is simply just a technician overseer, and everything else will be done by the robots. As this happened, I have argued in the past, as my family does do automation as well, that humanity would simply move over to new forms of employment, which is exactly what happened during the first industrial evolution. Everyone said then that this was going to be the end, nobody would be employed anymore, society would collapse, but we simply invented new jobs, along with, of course, an increase in the industrial base and the demand of laborers, both skilled and unskilled. I posited the idea that what humans would pivot towards during the second industrial revolution were social services. Instead of fixing an engine or driving a truck, you would be a personal trainer, you would be a YouTube content creator, you would be a professional friend. Something that we already are seeing in Asia, for example, with phenomenons like host clubs, or even where you can rent people to come over and celebrate your birthday with you. As we become more and more isolated from society at large, which we inevitably will with increases in technology, computers, internet, entertainment, etc., we will become more and more isolated, to the point where human contact will become something far more unique and precious. After all, what need would we ever have of leaving our house besides that human contact if everything we ever need is either delivered in a box in our yard via a drone or is on the internet, where you have billions of hours of entertainment ready for you to consume day in and day out, especially if you don't need to work because there simply aren't enough jobs to go around. So, that, however, is starting to look somewhat nebulous, because if the three largest sources of AI is social services, the very services that I argued that humans would pivot towards, where exactly are we supposed to go then? Let's begin with the top one: therapy and companionship. So, a lot of people, of course, have mental issues of variant types. It could be something transitory, like a period of depression because you lost your job, for example, or a loved one passed away. An AI has no reason to judge you. In fact, most often than not, it can't judge you, as it is designed specifically to keep you happy and pleased. Furthermore, even if you pour your heart and soul out, it's a computer. It's not a human. He's not going to hold any judgment over you. In fact, the moment you close that tab, none of this will ever be brought up ever again. That can be quite preferable, especially for a lot of people who find it more difficult to talk with human beings. Things like displaying emotional weakness, for example, can be a very, very big no-no in many societies. And professional therapists are few, far between, and a hell of a lot more expensive than Grok or ChatGPT. There is also the fact that, as this article points out, therapists have actually started to lag behind the AI. The AI is now starting to become as good at therapeutic advice as the professionals are. And then let's look for the second one, the even worse one: companionship. In an age where we see declining birth rates, we see more and more people give up on the dating markets, we see more and more social issues surrounding the very prospect of trying to find a mate, a soulmate, someone to fall in love with, somebody to start a family with. Whether it be due to political problems, whether it be personal circumstances, whether it be economic, indeed, the difficulty of saving up enough money to even afford to get a loan, as you usually need all kinds of starting capital to do so, which things that will be only made even more complicated with a rising housing crisis, if we still continue with mass immigration, of course, falling rates at which we build houses due to less laborers, more demand, not to mention, of course, more and more people being unemployed, etc., etc., etc. This is a problem that is unlikely to be getting a whole lot better, at least over the course of the next decade or two, okay? Well, yet again, the AI can be whatever you want. I did a bit of research into this, about a year ago now, I think, in relation to another video, where I went through a bunch of these popular chatbot sites, and there is anything and everything there you could possibly desire. They've got chatbots that'll pretend to be Britney Spears for you. There are chatbots that'll pretend to be DC characters, Marvel characters. You just came home from a movie? There's probably a chatbot of the characters in that movie you can talk to. A great deal of these are more directed towards erotic entanglements, some more long-term than others, like one, for example, which I believe the headline was "The gang of well-hung Latino gangbangers outside of your convenience store." I'll let you imagine what the thrust of that particular bot was. And of course, yet again, the AI doesn't judge. No matter what kind of heinous things you might be into, or even if you're simply just looking for a shoulder to cry on, the AI won't judge you. The AI won't react and go, "Hey, that's cringe, bro." The AI will simply roll with it, because that is all it can do. And worse still, we are already at the point right now where you can create an AI personality that can do a dangerously good job of impersonating other characters. We're already beginning to have AI image generators. We're already beginning to see AI being able to make full video and even movie clips. Indeed, one of the other problems here that they talked about, that is one of the non-social ones, is generating social media content. Content creation and editing is at 18 to 23% here. The most watched video on Twitter last month was an AI-generated video of a baby being thrown out of a burning airplane and then rescued by, I think, a pug or some sort of dog, and the two of them living happily together on an island. It was such obvious AI slop that you wonder how anyone could ever watch it, and yet more people watched that than anything else. You've probably seen all kinds of AI videos of ridiculous things. Like, one of the very popular ones is one that appeals to the human psyche, with an animal stuck in a trap, for example, and another animal comes along and saves the animal from the trap. Whereas in nature, the other animal would usually simply just beat to death and then eat the trapped animal, thus etc. And very rarely are these ever tagged with AI. They're those 1 in a million opportunities that people have to capture something unusual and captivating in nature is now done with a computer. And if we already have that capability now, how long until you can go, okay, I need advice on finding purpose in my life. I want workout tips, all right? Load up a version of Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime, teaching you all of his tricks, because they're already on the internet. They're already on his Wikipedia page, all his workout routine, speaking like him, generating his voice, generating a likeness of him on your computer, or on your Oculus Vive, or headsets, whatever, all in real time. Until you have, okay, you're looking for a companion. Okay, you can literally load up any person in history on this thing. You want to bang Julius Caesar? Go ahead. Or you can even generate probably full-on entertainment. Are you sick of TV shows ending on cliffhangers? Do you want to know how Firefly actually ended out? Worked out. English is difficult, apparently. The AI, if you give it enough information about Firefly, can do that for you. And again, once the image and video generation technology gets competent enough, we very quickly arrive at a point where the human contact can be very adequately, in my opinion at least, I believe, simulated by your computer. This will be the next technological race. Now, there are some pitfalls in the road here, of course. Companies might start getting litigious around certain uses of likenesses or ownership of IPs. Arnold Schwarzenegger might, for example, decide to copyright his likeness, so you can't get his training tips anymore, unless you subscribe to the Arnold Schwarzenegger channel, of course, where there he is in all of his glory. There is also, of course, the possibility of companies basically owning the generation platforms themselves. You want to create images? Okay. Well, Microsoft owns one of those. In fact, Microsoft owns most of them, so you have to do it through Microsoft. Want to make a game? You want to create a game engine and have that written by an AI, which is already working, by the way, on Grok? Well, Grok is, of course, owned by Twitter, and Elon Musk needs to earn some money as well, so that will be put behind a gate too. And as this becomes more and more important, more and more societally important, as more and more people will be looking for these things, the price will in all due likelihood either rise, assuming greed, or become so low due to the universal demand of it, all of the competition within the marketplace, that everyone will have access to it. And I'm not sure which one of those two scenarios is the most terrifying one. Honestly, I would imagine that an enforced artificial scarcity would be better for humanity in the long run, because if every one of us can simply replace our usual human interactions with an AI, as we are already well on the way to doing, well, there's probably not going to be a humanity in 1,000 years' time. Hell, 1,000, 200 years maybe, or a few centuries. Especially as we also see, finding purpose. This too. We've talked about this in the respect of Adolescence, for example. A show that shows us a young man who doesn't know what it is to be a man. And since we have already eradicated all of the other role models of what it is to be a man, they seek out individuals like Andrew Tate. Not because he's the best and the brightest in this field by any stretch of the imagination, but because he's the only one. Well, AI can teach you now. Is that better? Again, I'm not sure which one of those scenarios is the most frightening one, frankly. And, of course, there are other uses for AI as well. It's not all grim darkness, although there is some perhaps even more worrying things, as we can see here on the overall list. One of them, for example, is enhanced learning. This is an interesting one. So, people have brought up that when they take, say, things like online courses, for example, it obviously can't cover everything. But if you go to the AI and say, okay, I'm studying English, for example, and I will wonder about this, can you explain it to me? The odds are the AI can. This actually allows humans to attempt to improve themselves more, and actively so, rather than to organizing my life, where examples have been like having the AI set up a routine for what you're going to do that day, how you're going to clean your house, what you're going to eat, essentially turning yourself into a giant toddler in the care of Grok, which I worry that a surprising number of people would be enticed by that idea. Or generating code, for example. This too is another thing. We believed often that creative endeavors would be safe from the menace that is AI. Surely the people writing the code would always have a job, right? Well, no, in all due likelihood, the AI is going to start being able to upgrade itself, if it isn't already able to do so, then within a very few series of years. Okay, but we need human artists, right? AI is already painting like mad. It can already draw upon every single piece of artwork ever generated by all the great masters and everyone today. And it can pump out a hell of a lot more, to the point where it can create for itself, in essence, an endless database upon which to draw for further inspiration. Music. Music is but an algorithm. Already AI-generated music has hit the point where it basically sounds identical to the random tripe that is trotted out these days anyways. Now, don't get me wrong, there will always be the exception. There will always be the virtuoso, because the AI still is not truly capable of proper innovation in the way that we view it. The human eureka moment where we realize something crazy like, oh my god, that does work. So far, the AI does not appear to be able to compete with us in that regard, but we are now reducing ourselves to a 0-point-something percentage of incredible achievements, and even that will of course quickly be captured by the AI and then replicated ad infinitum, unless we somehow introduce copyright systems for thought. Which, ironically, might actually be necessary. At the very least, we are going to need a hell of a lot more legislation surrounding how AI can be used. What is fair use with AI? What can you use? Are you allowed to use people's likenesses? Because it's not actually the person. Say, for example, that you're creating a bot of a fictional character. Say that you want to create a bot of Natasha from Avengers, for predictable purposes in all due likelihood. Okay, well, that bot isn't actually Natasha. It isn't actually the character. It's at best pretending to be her, and even then, it's only pretending to be her in the loosest sense of the word, as in it has been given a few lines of text explaining to it how it should behave. And anything that it then comes up with is going to be unique to its own world and its own scenarios. How does that gel with copyright law? That, honestly, is going to be one of the main hurdles for AI, and looking at this being the number one, I'm actually starting to think that maybe we should seek to limit AI. Because if it really does become the premier way to experience human closeness and companionhood, one of the few things that people figured the AI couldn't take away from us, well, what use are we humans at that point? What reason do we have to not simply lock ourselves away and experience endless, beautiful VR simulated worlds with whatever characters we so desire? What reason do we have to not embrace the tomb pods? Beyond the clearly moral considerations, of course. Interesting days ahead, I tell you. Very, very interesting days. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.